Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia and welcome back to the Overwatch Contenders Roundup. So, the week of double uploads is in full swing, and this one is going to be concentrated on Contenders Trials for certain regions. So there's going to be two Contenders Trials videos this week, and this one will be concentrated on the Pacific, China, and Korea, and then we will take a look at the EU, South America and Australia in the second Trials video, and then we'll have a Contenders video to take a look at some of the regions that have already done their main Contenders tournament for Week 3. But this will all be revolving around Week 3. We have had Open Division now. If you've missed the Open Division roundups for Season 2, then do check them out. Everything but South America is in there because I couldn't get a South American bracket. But everything is done now in terms of Open Division. We have a bunch of new teams in these regions, and it'll be very interesting to see how they do in Trials and proceeding through to the main Contenders tournament as well. But without further delay, let's get into this then. We will start off in the Pacific with Trials for Week 3, and in the Pacific we would see Far East Society, Electric Gaming, UND, Greenleaves, Global Esports, IU, Ares Gaming, Cyclone Coupling, Tempest, Urban Stars Blue, Game Coach Academy, and D81 Fortuna. In the round of 12, which it annoys me that they say round of 12, I mean just call it the first round, we saw Cyclone Coupling taking on Tempest. This was a really close game, but Tempest would get a 3-2 victory here, moving on. And then Global Esports will take on D81 Fortuna. This would be a 3-1 win for D81 Fortuna, with them going into the quarterfinals. Ares Gaming will take on Urban Stars Blue. This would be a 3-1 win for Urban Stars Blue, with them moving on into the quarterfinals, and Game Coach Academy would also get a 3-1 victory over IU, and they would be sealing their spot in the quarterfinals. This is where we see the higher seeded teams come into it, the 4 highest seeded teams come into it at this point for Trials of Week 3. So, in the first quarterfinal, we saw Far East Society taking on Tempest. This was again a real close one, but Tempest would lose out here 3-2 to the Far East Society, with them moving on to the semi-finals. Greenleaves would take on D81 Fortuna. Remember, Greenleaves were one of the top seeded teams in this Trials tournament, but they get 3-0'd by D81 Fortuna, which is not a great result for them, and D81 Fortuna will be moving on. Greenleaves will be staying in Trials, unless I am wrong, which we will check in a minute. UND will take on Urban Stars Blue. This will be a 3-0 win for UND, and Electric Gaming will take on Game Coach Academy, and this will be a 3-0 win for Electric Gaming, as you would expect from these seeded teams. In the semi-finals, we saw Far East Society taking on D81 Fortuna. Once again, Far East Society will get a dominant 3-0 victory here. Far East Society, one of the better teams in the region, and UND will take on Electric Gaming, and UND will get a 3-1 win here, moving on to the final, where we would see them take on Far East Society. And this will be a 3-1 win for Far East Society, winning Contenders Trials for Week 3 in the Pacific. And we will see who goes through, because of the way in which some teams are pulled out, and there's been restructuring, then a lot of teams are actually going through from Trials to the main Contenders tournament. So going through to Contenders Week 3 of the Pacific, we see Far East Society, UND, D81 Fortuna, Electric Gaming, Tempest, Greenleaves, Urban Stars Blue, and Game Coach Academy. And staying in Trials for Week 4 will be Cyclone Coupling, Global Esports, Ares Gaming, and IU. So as you can see, 8 teams going through to Week 3 of Contenders for Pacific, which I think is pretty cool. It's nice to spice things up. Moving on to China then. China do things slightly differently. Remember that the Trials Week 3 bans were the Echo, Tracer, Orisa, Moira bans that we saw in the Overwatch League. So China do things slightly differently. There is no bracket for Trials in China. It is done via a group-based system. So Group A was made up of Pokomen Max, Sponsor Taking Gaming, Universe Thinker, and Zenith of Optimism. I will just run through the results from that group. So Sponsor Taking Gaming took on Pokomen Max. This was a 3-2 win for Pokomen Max. Zenith of Optimism took on Universe Thinker. This would be a 3-2 win for Universe Thinker. Sponsor Taking Gaming took on Zenith of Optimism, a 3-0 for Sponsor Taking Gaming. Pokomen Max took on Universe Thinker, and this would be a 3-0 win for Pokomen Max. And then Sponsor Taking Gaming will take on Universe Thinker. It'll be a 3-0 win for Sponsor Taking Gaming. And then Pokomen Max would take on Zenith of Optimism, and this will be a 3-1 win for Pokomen Max, meaning that Pokomen Max and Sponsor Taking Gaming would be proceeding out of Group A and into Contenders Week 3 in China. In Group B, we saw Phantom Wizard, Ignition 1, Unnamed, and MDT. Unnamed would take on MDT, it would be a 3-1 win for Unnamed. Ignition 1 would take on Phantom Wizard, this would be a 3-1 win for Phantom Wizard. Unnamed would take on Ignition 1, and this would be a 3-2 win for Ignition 1. MDT would take on Phantom Wizard, and it would be a 3-1 win for Phantom Wizard. Then Unnamed would take on Phantom Wizard, and again it would be a 3-1 win for Phantom Wizard, and MDT would take on Ignition 1, and it would be a 3-0 win for Ignition 1, meaning that Phantom Wizard and Ignition 1 would proceed out of Group B to Overwatch Contenders for Week 3 in China. Pokomen Max would win Group A, and Phantom Wizard would win Group B. Unnamed, MDT, Universe Stinker, and Zenith Optimism will be competing in Trials for Week 4, unfortunately, and not proceeding to Week 3 of Contenders. So, we have one more region to take a look at, and this is the chunky region. It's the Korean region. I love the Korean region because we get to see so much different stuff, and it's really spicing up in the Korean region recently as well. We've seen a lot of different teams making waves, so it's really, really cool to see that. But in Korea, we saw World Game Star Phoenix, Element Mystic, Gen.G, T1, Butlicka, Meta Athena, OZ Gaming, Team PSR, Team BM, GC Busan Wave, Bravos Gaming, and Blossom. In round 12, or round of 12, or round 1, whatever you want to call it, OZ Gaming will take on Blossom. This would be a 3-0 win for OZ Gaming. Meta Athena would take on Bravos Gaming. This would be a 3-0 win for Meta Athena. Team PSR would take on Team BM, and this would be a 3-0 win for Team BM. And Butlicka would take on GC Busan Wave, and this would be a 3-0 win for Butlicka. In the quarterfinals, we saw the top 4 seeded teams come into this. So WGS Phoenix would take on OZ Gaming. This would be a 3-2 win for OZ Gaming, actually, which is pretty surprising. But again, it doesn't mean too much because there's quite a few people going through to the main tournament. T1 would take on Meta Athena. This would be a 3-0 win for T1. Element Mystic would take on Team BM and actually get swept 3-0 by Team BM, which is not a great look for Element Mystic, but again, they could have not taken part in this game and still gone through. So yeah, that's kind of the way it works. Gen.G would take on Butlicka, and again, this would be a 3-0 win for Butlicka, but I wouldn't take too much away from the fact that Gen.G and Element Mystic have kind of got swept in Trials because they're still going through, and I expect them to step up when they go to the main Week 3 Contenders tournament. In the semi-finals, we saw OZ Gaming taking on T1. This will be a 3-0 win for T1, and Team BM will take on Butlicka, and this will be a 3-1 win for Team BM, meaning we had a final between T1 and Team BM, and this will be a 3-1 win for T1, continuing their fairly strong look in the Korean region this year after all of the rebrand and stuff. Remember, T1 really used to be the Fusion University, and it's just completely different now. So, moving through to contenders for Week 3 in Korea will be T1, Team BM, OZ Gaming, Butlicka, World Game Star Phoenix, Meta Athena, Element Mystic, and Gen.G. Again, Element Mystic and Gen.G are at the bottom of those rankings, but I wouldn't take too much from that. I think that is just a thing of they wanted to preserve themselves for the main contenders tournament. T1 will obviously be going through as the first place highest seeded team out of Trials for Week 3 in Korea into the main tournament. So, that rounds us out for those 3 regions. Again, there will be another video, probably tomorrow, discussing the other regions, EU, Australia, and the South American region. NA, I don't believe has taken place yet, or isn't at the time of recording, so that will have to just be slotted into a Contenders video or something like that. But I'm really happy that Contenders is starting up again. We're going to see some really spicy stuff going on, and there'll be a lot of teams looking at these players because, you know, there's a certain team in Vancouver that needs a new roster. And at the time of this going up, I don't know what's happening. So it'd be very, very interesting. At the time of recording, there hasn't much has happened with Vancouver, but especially in North America, there'll be some people or organizations quaking in their boots because they'll be worried that they're going to lose all their players to an Overwatch League team. But I'm going to leave it here for this one. Keep an eye out on the channel because obviously as we are continuing with this double upload week to get through the backlog of videos that I had in mind, we are going to be seeing a lot of videos. We're going to see obviously the Overwatch League roundups continue and the Contenders roundups continue, and then there'll be a Contenders roundup, and then there'll be all sorts of videos, and then there's a special video planned for Friday. I believe the second video Friday is going to be a really interesting one that a lot of people have wanted to see for a little while. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then.